What if we told you that the Dark Lord Sauron could have won the War of the Ring? Although the One Ring is ultimately destroyed and Sauron falls, the war was never that simple. Sauron was the most cunning and efficient of the Maiar. He wanted Middle-earth under his control, always using the shadows to hide his true intentions, and almost always succeeding in everything he did. He had armies, a strategic location in Mordor, and conflicted enemies. So how did the most intelligent Dark Lord of all the ages of Middle-earth lose the War of the Ring when he had everything in his favor? Today in Fantasy Archive we will delve into the key factors that contributed to Sauron's defeat, the context before the war, events that weakened his position, and the strategic mistakes made by Sauron and his minions. Whether you are a die-hard books fan or a casual viewer of the movies, this video will provide you with a deeper understanding of the war's intricacies and why Sauron ultimately failed in his quest for domination. Stay tuned to the end to discover how we think Sauron could have won and what lessons we could learn from this epic tale of good versus evil. When Morgoth fell in the War of Wrath, Sauron escaped. Since he could shapeshift and was a master of mischief like Loki, he blended with the peoples of Middle-earth without any difficulty. However, when he discovers the 3 elven rings, Sauron becomes obsessed with them. That makes him return to Mordor to create the 7 rings of the dwarves and the 9 for the men. All of this leads to the Battle of the Last Alliance, where Isildur defeated him by cutting off the ring from his finger, and the Third Age of Middle-earth begins. Most of the elves, dwarves, and men thought Sauron had been destroyed, but there were some like Gandalf the Grey that always suspected that he was still around. It isn't until the late Third Age that Gandalf discovers Sauron hiding in Dol Guldur. Then, vanquished by the White Council, the Dark Lord flees to the east to Mordor, where he continues to grow in power. At some time, Smeagol finds the One Ring, and it eventually falls into the hands of Bilbo Baggins. On his 111th birthday, Bilbo passes the ring to his nephew Frodo, and Gandalf confirms this is indeed the One Ring. Sauron is looking for his prized possession, so this would eventually result in the War of the Ring. For those who have only watched the movies, the War of the Ring seems pretty forward and simple to follow. Frodo and Sam take the ring to Mordor while Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, and Gandalf aid Rohan and Gondor until standing their ground at the Black Gates of Mordor. That being said, if we go to Tolkien's books, the War of the Ring is far more complex. Let us share additional insights. Before Frodo gets the ring, Sauron declares war on Gondor, assaulting the ancient capital of Osgiliath. There, the Witch King of Angmar leads Sauron's troops, which were barely stopped by Boromir and Faramir. Then Boromir gets to Rivendell and learns that the ring has been found, joining the Fellowship of the Ring. When the Fellowship begins their quest, the war officially begins. One of Sauron's main mistakes was to underestimate the will and strength of the free armies of Middle-earth. He believes that men are weak and corruptible, as shown by the fall of the 9 men that became the Nazgul. Therefore, he can't foresee how the free peoples were willing to leave their conflicts behind to unite against him. That being said, we have to have into account the next factors. The elves in the books didn't fight in the Battle of Helm's Deep, which is why the battle itself was far more complicated for the men of Rohan, which fought alongside their best soldier Éomer under Aragorn's lead. Legolas and Gimli also fight, and in the end, just like in the movie, more or less, Gandalf arrives with all the Horse Lords to sweep the Uruk-hai. Sauron didn't anticipate that Aragorn, Gimli, Legolas, and the Grey Company, composed of Halbarad and Elrond's sons Eladin and Elrohir, would be able to get help from the army of the dead. With their assistance, they were able to defeat the fleet of the Corsairs of Umbar, changing the tide of the battle in their favor. With the army of the dead, they assault Minas Tirith and liberate the city. The second of Sauron's mistakes was not using his forces efficiently. Though it is not shown in the film, he decides to attack the Dwarven Kingdom of Erebor at the same time that he tried to conquer Gondor. There were around 100,000 orcs fighting against Gondor in Minas Tirith, while there were probably 150 to 200,000 fighting in Erebor. In the assault of Minas Tirith, as we see in the movie, the battle goes on for various days until Rohirrim, or Riders of Rohan, and the army of the dead finish Sauron's troops. In the north, however, things don't go well. In the Battle of Dale, Dane, Lord of the Iron Hills and King under the Mountain, fight side by side with Bard, King of Dale, against the armies of Sauron to stop them from conquering Erebor, as they did at the Battle of the Five Armies. After losing the battle and losing both of their kings, the armies retreat to the mountain until news from the south says Sauron has been defeated. Leaving behind all the battles, Sauron's biggest oversight was to fall into Gollum's deception and eventually lose focus of the ring. In the book, when Sauron captured Gollum, Gollum does not confess that the hobbit who had the ring was in the Shire. He says hobbits are in the Vales of Anduin. After Sauron sends the Nazguls to the Vales, Gollum escapes, and the Dark Lord orders the Nine to continue north until they find the Shire, losing months of precious time. If Sauron didn't obsess himself with eliminating Isildur's heir and the hope of union under a king, he would not have gotten distracted by the war. He would have been able to focus his efforts on finding Frodo and Sam before they reached Mount Doom, even before they could arrive in Cirith Ungol. His poor strategy leads us to think that he may have succumbed to desperation. He was weakened, unable to take a form. He couldn't find his ring. His lack of focus and emotional intelligence led him to get distracted by battles and conquering when his priority should have been the ring and getting himself strong enough again. His ego also plays a role in why Sauron was defeated. This is how we think Sauron could have won the War of the Ring. From a battle standpoint, he should have conquered Osgiliath first and used it to destroy the morale of the Gondorian army. If Sauron had left Erebor for last and had unleashed his full strength first to conquer Gondor, he could have then moved on to Helm's Deep, which would have been ruled by his puppet Saruman. Even if Saruman had already lost his control of Rohan, they would still have a smaller army and would eventually fall. After that, Sauron had only to keep moving north, conquering Lothlorien, then Rivendell, to finally march to Erebor to overthrow the mountain and control all Middle-earth. However, the most important thing he should have done is acknowledge there was a way he could be defeated. He had to do his own SWOT analysis and prioritize getting the One Ring to safety and preventing any possibility of its destruction. Sauron should have kept tabs on Gollum after he shared that Bilbo Baggins had the ring. He knows Gollum is obsessed with the ring, therefore he will do whatever it takes to find it again. But Sauron never imagined that a pathetic creature like Gollum could trick him so easily. Nor did he think his enemies would mean to destroy the ring. Furthermore, the Dark Lord should have patrolled all the routes and ways that lead into Mordor, or at least secured the entrance to Mount Doom. If he had done such a thing, he would have noticed any suspicious activity, and he could have at least exercised his influence on both Gollum and Frodo when they were in possession of the ring near Mount Doom. With the One Ring in his grasp again, Sauron would have been the most powerful of all the Dark Lords to ever exist, destroying any chance of the free people to reconquer their homes. He could manipulate, make some switch sides, outlast those who didn't, and keep growing his forces in Mordor.